Hi class, I'm going to help you out a little bit with Lab 49.5, Sum and Product of Elements. And these are two functions that we're going to be writing. So it says you have been given a main function that populates an array of integers. It then calls two functions, sum of elements and product of elements, which should compute and return the sum and the product of an array of elements. So in other words, sum of elements needs to add up all of the elements in the array, and product of elements needs to multiply all of the elements in the array. It says do not modify the main function in any way. Your program should perform all of the additional processing in the functions. So we need to add a function with the following prototype. So we're going to have an array as the first parameter in this function, an array of integers. And the second parameter is an int, which will represent the size of the array. And the integer that this element returns should be the sum of all of the elements that are passed into the first parameter. Now the second function is called product of elements, and it also will have a parameter that is an array of integers, the first parameter, and the second parameter is an integer that represents the size, and then it needs to return the product of all of the elements in the array that's passed into the first parameter. So I've given you the prototypes, you have to write the functions. Here's sample input. So this is a sample set of the array values, and based on this input, your program should produce the following output. I've actually written the code to produce this output. The only thing you have to do is make sure that your function sum of elements returns a 56 when this data is read in, and your function product of elements returns this number when this is read in. So let me show you the code I've given you. I have an array called set defined to hold 7 integer elements. I use a range-based for loop to read in the values into the array set. Now I could have used a normal for loop here, but I wanted to utilize a range-based for loop so you could see that you have to use a reference when you are trying to read values into an array using a range-based for loop. Okay, in line 18, I see out the sum of elements in the array is, now sum of elements is the function that you need to write. We are passing the set array that we populated with this loop into our first parameter, and the array size, which is a 7, into our second parameter. You need to write the body of this function down below. So down here is where you're going to write your functions. Sum of elements needs to traverse the entire array, and at each element add its value to an accumulator and then return that accumulator value. The second cout, the product of elements in the array is, and then look, we call product of elements, passing in set and array size. So you're going to be passing set into your first parameter and array size into your second parameter. So the body of this function needs to multiply all of the elements together and then return that product. So just like you used an accumulator to add up all of the values in the set array inside your sum of elements, you can do the same thing in product of elements, but you're going to be needing to multiply each of the items in the array by your accumulator variable. So be careful when you are initializing your accumulator variables, because when computing the sum of items, you want to initialize your accumulator variable to 0. But when you are computing the product of items, if you initialize your accumulator to 0, 0 times anything is 0, so that's not correct. So you'll need to initialize your accumulator variable in product of elements to a 1, because 1 times anything is anything. So that's all the help I'm going to give you on this one. Good luck. I hope you get it done. If you have problems with your code, you can send it to me. Good luck.